Greetings, everybody. This is instructor Eric Williams. I'm here today to talk about virtual machines. Now, what is a virtual machine? A virtual machine is a computer within a computer, basically. Um, you have two components to it. You have a host, the host being the operating system that you are on, and you have the guest being the virtual machine itself. As you progress in your IT profession, you're going to become very familiar with virtual machines. Virtual machines are used across the industry in almost any IT professional setting. So I'm going to show you how to set up a virtual machine using a platform called VirtualBox. Now there's a couple of different virtual machines. There's VMware, there's VirtualBox, there's Parallels. Um, but the one we're going to focus on is VirtualBox, and it's free download and free to use. So let's dig right in. So there's two things we're going to need. The first is VirtualBox itself. So if you go to VirtualBox up here at the top, type that in, and you'll come up here to this. Most of us are going to have Windows host, meaning that we're going to operate on Windows. So we're going to download that Windows host. Let's go ahead and install that. So we're going to open up VirtualBox here, download. So the download actually appeared over this screen. And we're just going to put next. We don't really have to worry about any of this right now. It's a standard install. It's pretty simple for VirtualBox for what we're going to use it for. So we're just going to hit next install. A lot of the configuration when it comes to VirtualBox happens within the virtual machines that you're actually doing. And it's that quick. It's that easy. And you actually have VirtualBox put on here. So the second thing that you're going to have, and we'll open up VirtualBox here so you can take a look. It's appearing on my other screen because that's my main screen. You can see it here. There's not much to look at because there's no virtual machines here. So we need to have a operating system, whether it's Linux or Windows, to put into our virtual machine. So we're going to take a look at doing that next. So let's open up back to that web page. Now, we're not going to do anything illegal. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the Microsoft page, and we can actually download a copy of Windows 10. You actually have to get the media creation tool here. So we'll download that. And it's done. It's a very short download. And it's asking me for permission. I'll pull that over here. And what that's going is, let's talk about the advantages of virtual machines. Virtual machines allow you to be able to have another operating system on your computer. I'm actually doing this on a fresh profile so that you're seeing what I see. And we're doing this together. And and it allows you to be able to practice IT tools as a student without messing up your actual operating system. Because, sometimes we can get into doing something and, we made a mistake. And now we have to try to figure out how to fix that mistake because we only have the one computer that we're working on. Well, working in a virtual environment will allow you to be able to explore and try some advanced techniques on different things without worrying about getting back to square one, because you could do something called a screenshot. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So we're going to accept this. And it's saying that it's getting a few things ready. What we're going to do is we're going to download a separate ISO for it. And it's just taking a second to do that. But yeah, it gives you a good sandbox environment, an environment where you can practice different skills without worrying about messing up a computer, because 2 clicks later, and guess what? You're back to your original install of Windows. Now, we're not going to upgrade machine. We'll create a media installation. I'm going to show you how all this works. We're going to do Windows 10, 64-bit. What we're going to do is create an ISO. An ISO is an image. If you want to know more about ISOs, we'll talk about that later. You would click next, but that actually takes a second. I don't need to create an ISO because I already created one. But you would create this ISO and save it to a folder. I already have one here, and then I just put Windows 10, and I stored it on drive E, which is a separate hard drive on my computer. So I'm not going to do that. It's going to take a second to do that. I've already done it, so I'm going to X out of here. I just wanted to show you the steps on how to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our machine here. We're going to create a new virtual machine. We're going to call it Windows 10. All right. Now, I have an ISO image. Remember we created ISO image? I'm going to go to Other. I'm going to navigate to that window, VMs, Windows 10, and I'm going to open that up. Put that right there. Now, you can do what's unintended install. I like to skip the unintended install. And I like to watch it install, actually. So I'll hit next. Here's where you decide how much RAM and how many CPUs you want to give your device. Now, this is all about the resources that you have on your computer. This is a VM that we're just going to be playing around with. So I'm not going to give it a lot of resources. I'm going to give it probably about 8 gigs, right? And then I'm going to put 2 CPUs on it because you got to keep in mind that your computer is sharing these resources as it's running the VM. But this is actually all scalable. You can actually come back and adjust this at any time. So don't worry about not getting this exactly right the first time you're playing with it. Because you can always come back for this. So we're going to hit next. I'm going to do 50 gigabytes. Again, it's just one that we're playing with. This is not going to be a production model, so we'll just put 50 gigabytes on the virtual hard drive. You actually allocate how much space you want it to have there. So this is all the information that we put in. Reference 2 hours. I'm going to go back for a second. Yeah, we'll leave it. So we'll just hit finish, and it has created that Windows 10. Now we want to power it on. So now it's cutting it on. And I usually run a couple different things like this. I run Linux and on a VM. So let me move this. I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to move this window over that has that Windows 10 install on it. And we're going to basically install Windows 10 on this VM. And you're going to recognize this as just a standard Windows 10 install. So we're going to hit next here. We're going to hit install. It's going to set up. It's going to take us through it. And that's the beautiful part about VMs is that I don't have a product key, so I'm just going to put I don't have a product key. I'm going to install Windows. I like Windows 10 Pro. We'll install that. And this will actually run without a products key, but it's just limited on what you can do. I always hit custom install. That's at 50 gigabytes we had. We're just going to hit next on that. It's already. I'm just going to install the basic Windows. And Windows will run actually without a products key. A lot of people don't know that. You're limited on the features that you could do with Windows, but you don't necessarily have to actually have a product key to run Windows. So we're just going to let that install. And we'll come back when this has finished installing. So we're back. What happened was it finished installing, and then it restarted like Windows does normally. Um, and it's just in the middle of that restart right now. But yeah, I mean, it's just a normal Windows install. If you ever install Windows on a computer before, so you didn't miss anything, not at all. But yeah, it'll restart. And like I said, you know, you can run Windows without the product key on a VM. There's no problem with that. So what you're seeing is the just installing Windows. I'm gonna make that smaller actually for a second. The good thing is you can resize this, and I'm gonna show you how you can actually get this to look the way that you want it to. VMs make a good training ground, though. That's the one thing about them. And you can install programs on them actually. So whenever I have a program that I suspect is maybe malware or something like that, I could put that in a VM and isolate it, because you can keep your VM from communicating with your host. Your host being, if you notice, Windows back here. So we're putting Windows on top of Windows actually. So I'm gonna let this finish getting ready, and we'll come back. Okay. All right. So we're back. Like I said, we're gonna continue this install. If you ever installed Windows before, um, it's pretty straightforward and simple. But yes, for United States, yeah, we're gonna skip a second keyboard layout. Again, if you ever installed Windows before, this is just straightforward. There are some shortcuts you can use. I just wanted to show you an easier way to um, get the VM and a free way to get it. Um, like I said, if you notice, we just went straight to Microsoft and down it. Like I said, what'll happen is after I think 30 days of running, it'll turn itself into an evaluation copy. It still has functionality. You just lose some functionality, but the whole purpose of this VM that we're installing is just to be able to practice some of the things in the class, which we should still have access to all of that without having to worry about messing up your computer, or if you want to practice on your own. Like I said, it's not a requirement. This is just supplemental or complemental, however you want to say, whichever one you want to say, to the class itself. Just thought I would just explore some topics, and one of the first things is VMs. A VM allows you to work with multiple operating systems. You can download different Kali Linux. Different Linux versions. One that I usually download is Kali. Or if you're just trying to start getting into Linux, you could do Ubuntu. That's another one you could use. And there are a lot of advanced things you could do with VMs as well. So you can actually set those up to communicate with each other. And that'll help you with the networking portion, learning how networks work. Being able to have them communicate with each other. So, I mean, basically, I know there's a screen saying thanks for your patience. But another thing you could download is you could download like a Linux version. Like I went in, let me see, Kali Linux. If you're in cybersecurity, you're gonna another tool to get used to is Linux, particularly Kali Linux. It has a lot of digital forensic and networking tools. If any of you are taking ethical hacking, this is definitely something you will use a lot. in ethical hacking and in digital forensics. Um, so right now I'm actually downloading an installer for it. I like the completely offline installation for it. You can download a virtual machine for it. It does come in virtual as a pre-built virtual machine here. So you can download like the VirtualBox version of that. I customize mine a lot, so I tend to do the offline installation. But it's up to you which one you want to do. Whether you want to do 32-bit or 64-bit. Still going, ain't it? So, but if you're going to get into Linux, I would actually suggest not Kali Linux, but Ubuntu. That's a good one good way to get your foot in the door with Debian Linux. So you can type in Ubuntu. Yeah, I know this to some of y'all I'm speaking foreign. Some of y'all are like, yeah, I get it. But like I said, you're at the beginning of that IT career. So I'm just trying to get you started thinking. I noticed that we're not going to go that far into it, but we do have a section on operating systems, if you notice in our book. And we will talk a little bit about Linux and what it is. So maybe we can get you started playing with it. And it's something that you're going to use in your IT field. We're not going to accept all. I'll take the essential cookies. That's it. So you can download Ubuntu. It's a very, very light, meaning that it's not a very heavy program. We'll go set it up for personal use. I just switched back to the VM offline account. We're not going to put anything online with it. Limited experience. I just put Windows 10. I'm not very creative when it comes to we'll just put user. And I'm not going to put a password for it. My actual laptop I don't keep anything on VMs. I just use them for, usually for teaching or learning something new. A lot of times for teaching. And we'll cut all this off. I don't need any of that. Even though this VM is not going to be hooked up to the internet. But you can actually hook your VM up to the internet to run through your internet connection that you used on your host machine. I usually tend to keep my VMs offline unless I need to update something, and that's something we'll talk about in another video on how that works. I'm not going to worry about Katana. So, I'm sorry about how long this video is. I wish I could make it shorter. Now it's doing that, getting everything ready for you, which that can actually take a second too. So we're just going to let that just sit. Anybody who's ever installed Windows knows that it is a boring process. Now, you can do the unattended. I like to attend mine because I like to watch what's going on to make sure my VM is installed the way that I want it to. So I tend to want to watch it to make sure everything is on the up and up when I'm installing everything. But down here, this is pretty interesting to show you. So down here you have icons. These icons represent different aspects of the computer. So you actually have a drive. You actually have the hard drive right here. This is going to be your disk drive. This is your sound. This is your computer connectivity. And you can see that it's using a network adapter. We'll get into that. But like I said, we're not gonna dive a lot into VMs. I'm just showing you how to set one up to use for some exercises we're going to try with some different things in the material that we already have. So that's going to be pretty interesting. But yeah, so I'm going to pause this for a second and we'll come back as soon as it boots up. And we're back, everybody, and we have our virtual machine up. If you notice, you see Windows 10 and Windows 10. Um, yeah, so like I said, VMs are a great tool to use, and if it's just, I mean, it works just like any other computer. So, I mean, it's literally a computer within a computer. You have Windows installed on Windows in this case. Now, one thing I will bring up, and I want to show you this. I'll bring it over here to the screen where you can see it. A VM shares resources with this host. So you can see that this is my host computer that you're seeing right here. It's running at, CPU's running pretty high at 90%, memory's at 13 because we put a lot of RAM inside this VM. That's because for me, I'm running that VM and I'm not running anything on the host, so I'll let it run like this. But as soon as you close this VM out, let's say I shut this down. We'll shut it down. I mean, you shut down Windows like you shut down Windows. I'm just going to shut it down. Let it shut down. And you'll see it drop back down. So if you see this, your CPU running high, don't get upset. Don't get scared. It's because it's sharing with the host. So that's what's going on at the time. But I'm purposely wanting to shut this down because I'm going to add the guest edition CD into it. So, but that's all I wanted to show you is that in this video is just how to get it set up. And it's going to take a second because it's doing some updates. But I promise it's going to shut down. The first shutdown takes a while. So now that it's a shutdown, you can see the CPU usage starting to drop. The memory's dropping. We're back down to 5.5 gigabytes of RAM, and CPU's running at 50-something%. And don't forget that I'm recording this video at the same time. So that's using, of course, a lot of additional computer resources. So my computer usually won't run that high. But yeah, so we have our Windows 10 VM. And it's that easy. You can set up, you have a bunch of VMs over here. Kali Linux, the whole 9 yards, Ubuntu, and they install pretty much the same way. So that's it for, well, let's do this. I'll show you this beforehand. So one thing about, I want to say about this is that it will use keyboard capture and it will use mouse capture. That being, so what's that? That means that when I run my mouse into this VM, this mouse corresponds inside the VM. If I go outside the VM, my mouse will still run accordingly. And we'll exit that out. We don't really need that. So, and it's just going to take a second to start. See the mouse integration? You can turn these off if you want to. I just tend to just exit out of it. And those just start like a regular Windows 10 computer. Now, I know I was talking about earlier being able to get back to, like I said, I just put user. There's no need. If this was a production VM, meaning that I was going to use it for actual analysis or something like that, then I would put a password on it and everything like I would my normal laptop. But this is just one for education purposes and just to give us an environment to play around. One thing I will say is you might want to go ahead and install the guest additions image. The guest additions image allows you, if you notice these little scroll bars on the side, I have to scroll to get this to size and work correctly. But I can fix that by installing the guest additions. And then just like on anything, I'm going to go, it's installed here into our optical drive. So we're going to go here to Documents. I'm going to open the View the Folder. I like to come to what I'm looking at. This is the guest additions. If you notice, it's just in the D drive, like I was saying. So I am looking for Windows additions. We want to do the Windows edition. And we're not running the 32 gig. We're running the 64 gig. So we're going to go ahead and click on that one. And we're going to allow that to install on here. Now, the guest additions just adds more functionality to your Windows VM. And it's installing just a couple different certificates and some more code to it. You just got to make sure that you're installing the right guest additions. If you have a Linux, you want to make sure you choose the Linux. If you're doing Windows, you want to do the Windows version. So we're going to let that install. Now I'll show you something that's really cool that's going to happen as soon as this installs. Well, we'll do a reboot first. I want to reboot it, and I'll pause and come back after it reboots, okay? So we're back. It's just restarting. You haven't missed anything. One thing I will say, so as you see, it's reinstalled. But one thing that we could do now is we could do full screen mode. And when you do full screen mode, it'll actually become like a full Windows screen. To come out of it, you press the host key and the F key. So we'll go ahead and switch to full screen. And if you notice, it looks like my regular Windows. If I press there's no sidebar. This is the actual VM that you're looking at on this screen. It can get confusing between your VM and the host machine when you're running Windows on Windows. It still works. You can install programs. One thing that you could do is you could take a snapshot. This is what you need to do. So snapshot means that it takes a look at the computer with all the settings that it has right then and there, and it stores that in memory. Now, why is that important? Because, and we'll put after, I'm going to call this after install. Right? Hit OK. And it's going to save this snapshot of what this looked like, what the programs that are on it, the settings that are on it right now. This goes back to what I was telling you about. You could play around. So I could go in here and play around and really mess up this VM playing around, do something that I can't remember how to undo. But as long as I have a snapshot, I'm going to pause this VM. Pausing just means that I'm going to put it on hold. If I go here to my Windows 10 and I go to snapshots, you notice there's a snapshot that says after install. So let's say I play around with it, I mess something up, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know how to get it back. Well, I can come over here to snapshots, click on this, and roll back to that install that I did. So that's one of the best things about VMs is that you can play around and be able to and learn in a learning environment without worrying about messing something up permanently. And we'll talk more about settings maybe in the future. But I just wanted to show you how to install that on here, how to get your Windows on Windows. And like I said, there's other OSs that you can get into. When we talk about OSs, operating systems, we'll look at some other ones using our virtual machine. So that's one reason why I wanted to take the time to show you how to install one and put one together. I know it's a long video. I apologize, but as you can see, it's a lot of steps trying to install a virtual machine. But once you get it installed, you are good to go. And like I said, you can actually install programs on here and everything else. So we'll talk about that at another time. But this is instructor Eric Williams, and I hope you enjoy your VM. Take care.